Anything else you want to say to your fans, man?
Man, shout out to Dante's Boxing Nation. You know, follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, ERROL Spence Jr., my whole name, and just look out for me.
And last thing, what you think about Brook versus Golovkin, man?
I don't know, it's a trend now. That's all I got to say.
It's a trend?
Yeah. If middleweights can fight welterweights, I can fight whoever the hell I want to fight. I don't want to hear nothing no more. I don't want to hear no Danny Garcia fight easy people. If middleweights can fight welterweights, I can fight whoever I want to fight. Yeah. I fight current or former world champions every time. So I don't want to hear none of that stuff no more. You better go criticize some of the other fighters now.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? You know, it's funny, when Danny Garcia said that to me, that interview was a couple months back. I believe that was in Alabama at the Wilder versus Areola press conference. And when he said that to me, I thought he was being a little sarcastic because he was making fun of the Golovkin versus Kell Brook matchup, obviously the middleweight versus the welterweight. You heard what Danny Garcia just said. He said, man, if middleweights could fight welterweights, y'all shouldn't complain about who I fight against. Once again, I thought he was being sarcastic. But as it turns out, Danny, he really meant that when he said that. Because he was originally supposed to fight Andre Berto. All of a sudden, for some strange reason, he pulls out of negotiations. Then he negotiates with John Molina. Now, all of a sudden, he's fighting a guy named Samuel, what is his name? Samuel Vargas, right? As you see, I could barely say his name because I had never heard of him, of course. So this is not a good look for Danny Garcia. Matter of fact, according to reports, Al Heyman and the PBC series, they've been aggressively pushing Danny Garcia to unify the belts and fight Keith Thurman. It was Danny Garcia and his people that told Al Heyman and PBC, let us get one tune-up bout before we fight against Keith Thurman, right? This is not a good look for Danny Garcia. And now, not only are all the fans jumping on Danny Garcia, but now you have all of the boxers that are clowning Danny Garcia as well, including Errol Spence and Keith Thurman. But let me go ahead and quote exactly what Errol Spence had to say about this situation of Danny Garcia fighting against this relatively unknown fighter. This is what Errol Spence had to say. Now, keep in mind, before I quote exactly what Errol Spence had to say, it's very important to note that when Errol Spence called out Danny Garcia had the nerve to say, Errol Spence, he has to prove himself. Now, let me go ahead and quote exactly what Errol Spence had to say. Danny say, I have to pay my dues, but he's fighting somebody I knocked out already. End quote. I mean, what Errol Spence just said right there, that pretty much sums up the whole situation. Because that's exactly what I would have said. You know, with this move, and I've tried to give Danny Garcia the benefit of the doubt for so long, but Danny Garcia, he makes it impossible to defend his actions. For you to say that Errol Spence has to prove himself, and then you face a guy that Errol Spence knocked out a long time ago, you just proved to the whole boxing world that you wanted no parts of Errol Spence. And you really don't want any parts of Keith Thurman. That is the perception. The fact that Danny Garcia is facing a complete unknown fighter, I think Al Heyman should treat Danny like an undercard fighter when it comes to this fight. If I was Al Heyman, I would have said, okay, Danny, so you want to fight this guy no one knows. You want to fight this guy that's going to disappoint all of the boxing fans. I'm going to tell you what, you're not going to get a big check and you're not going to headline. I'm going to put you on an undercard because this is an undercard fight. That is what Al Heyman should do. That's how I would treat this situation. You know, I mean, it makes no sense. Danny Jacobs versus Andre Berto already wasn't the biggest fight. But when you look at the downgrade in opposition, it almost makes Garcia versus Berto look like Garcia versus Lucas Matisse. You feel me? So, yeah, man, this is not a good look for Danny Garcia. And I tell you right now, that Danny Garcia, once he gets past Vargas, it'll be interesting to see if he tries to pull out of a Keith Thurman fight. I really see him as the underdog in that fight. And if he loses that fight, his career will really take a huge dive, because everything that he was doing leading up to a big fight like Keith Thurman. So that's pretty much all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one.
This is Bobby, and you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation.